Welcome to another episode of NetoAI's podcast, where we engage with industry pioneers and thought leaders to talk about the innovations, challenges, transformative potential of AI, and its ethical implications. I'm your host, Smriti Singh, Chief Scientist at NetoAI, and today I'm joined by Sray Agarwal, a renowned AI governance specialist. It's an episode you don't want to miss. So Shrey is an AI and analytics expert with over 13 years of experience, specializing in responsible AI, machine learning, and decision science. He has been recognized by Microsoft as most valuable professional in AI. He also serves as an expert advisor to the United Nations. He's also authored a book on responsible AI. He mentors startups and is a sought-after global speaker and educator. Hello, Shreya. I'm so pleased to have you join us as we discuss AI governance in today's session. A very warm welcome to you. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing good.
That's great. Good. So, Shreya, let's just get started with a very quick question about your journey. So, what inspired you to pursue a career in AI governance? And how did your journey unfold?
Very interestingly, so I have been working in AI since a decade or so. However, pre-COVID, I was reading about a lot of research paper on explainable AI and fairness. And that is where I thought that we need to create something called safe AI. So safe AI at that time in my mind was very, very confined to fairness, explainability,
Yeah.
safety, and accountability. Right? Only this, so SAFE for that matter. And that is where I started working on fairness and explainability. Now, while I was working on fairness and explainability, I was able to catch hold of few of my clients and do a small point of view and demo for them. However, what I realized that whenever we implement Safe AI at that time, it was confined to a very, very small artifacts or very small amount of things which they wanted to implement. But this is a very big area. And then COVID hit. And during COVID, I started doing a lot of research and a lot of reading research paper. And then I came to idea of building something called responsible AI. And responsible AI was much more vast, where it talks about fairness, drifts, data drift, privacy, explainability, and just not explainability, talking about what's happening under the hood, but end-to-end explainability. And that is where I came up with designs, canvas, everything. And that is where I wrote the book because I thought the entire information cannot be implemented to a client or to a project, but a book would be a great idea. So that was one part. But post which, when I joined my current company, what we realized that only codes or Python codes or API are not enough. There are a lot of things which needs to go into it. So for example, you need to build a proper governance structure where you have R&R, roles and responsibility, who will do what, at what stages of data science life
Yeah.
cycle, and different canvas. And then came a lot of policies. So say EU AI Act, the White House executive order, Singapore, China, India, DPDP came up. And that is where I thought of putting it all together and creating a certification process that you fill this 50 or 80 questions which I have, and will be able to certify you over 8 or 10 principles. And these principles were also subjective ones like social well-being, planet inclusiveness, business objective, plus other stuff. And then came Gen AI and generative AI.
Yeah.
And then I started adding more principles to it, like hallucination, stability, privacy, robustness, and thus created a whole governance framework which talks about just not the principles which we talked about, but also talks about enablers like governance, AI governance committee, talks about audit bodies, talks about certification process, talks about implementing all these in an MLOps life cycle, and so on and so forth. So that is where I thought that creating guardrails and floodgate at different stages of life cycle, data science life cycle, AI life cycle is important. And that can only be done at AI governance, through AI governance. Now, in simple, how do I define AI governance is responsible AI is one time activity. But AI governance is checks which happens every now and then. It's more like
Yeah.
a monitoring process and a human in the loop.
Yeah. That's a very interesting journey, Shrey. And before we jump into AI governance framework and double click on it, so today, if you see, there are a number of terms floating around. Some says this is risk management, trustworthy AI, responsible AI, and you're saying AI governance. So for you, what is this concept? What does it include? What is this framework all about?
Right. So I was giving this presentation in Serbia, November or December, I forgot. And we came across the same question. And I
Yeah.
always said that rose spelled as anything is always smells sweet. Right. So it doesn't depend
Yeah.
upon what do you call it. And if you talk about anything, be it ISO or be it any NIST or anything, every OECD, everybody have a similar guidelines that it is shuffled in some shape and form. Like you can call it explainable AI, and I can
Yeah.
call it transparent AI. We have the same fundamental information inside it. So for me, AI governance is should have number one, the responsible AI principle, and it should be exhaustive and adaptive. Now, why adaptive? Every now and then things are changing. So your principles and framework should be adaptive in nature that you can actually make changes. Number one. Number two, it should have enablers, which will allow a data scientist, a product owner, a CEO, CTO to implement those either through processes or through, say, codes and some kind of artifacts. The third, it should have a certification process, which should be like an eye opener that, hey, you did a good job, but this is how much you scored. You score 60 out of 100. And these are the principle on which you fail. And
Excellent.
these are the bodies who will actually take your happiness away. Say EUI Act, you fail. However, NIST, you pass. That will not happen, but
Yeah.
theoretically, then you should have a audit committee, human in the loop. And right, an audit committee should have chairs, not people. That is, it should be rotational. Sometime I become an RAI expert, somebody you become, sometimes somebody else has becomes. So those kind of audit committee, which is part of AI governance.
Mhm.
The fourth one, which is latest in the market, is called the red team. Now, what is a red team? The red team is set of people who will create scenarios and attack the AI model and try to see that is your AI model foolproof or not.
Yeah, like challenging the
Yeah.
AI solution. Yeah.
Right. So those all this together create an AI governance. And of
Awesome.
course, continuous monitoring and human in the loop, as I told, are two different and two most important aspect of AI governance.
Yeah. So, Shrey, so it's not that AI governance is like an entirely new concept. It's been there for many years, but with the rapid advancements in AI technology, its scope has significantly expanded, right? So, as I assume, it's no longer just about governing the model, or the algorithm itself. Today, AI governance covers the entire life cycle of AI systems, right from the data collection process to model training to deployment and monitoring, right? It involves ensuring that the processes behind AI are transparent, ethical, and as you said, they are aligned with, standards. So people have different opinions on what it covers and what its scope is. So in your view, what do you think are the biggest misunderstandings people have about AI governance?
So yeah, people think that AI governance starts when you start with your modeling process and ends the moment you complete your modeling. However, AI governance starts the moment you ideate a AI project.
Absolutely.
So the moment you start thinking of a business objective, that is the moment you think that you need to implement AI governance. And it never ends. Because even if you deploy something, you need to understand how do you decommission it. Are you decommissioning it safely? What do you do of the data? What do you do of the model? Do you have the right of erasure? Is your model being attacked? Will it be used for some other purpose? So it is a never ending process. So it starts the moment you incept anything about AI, and it will go on till you have a full stop in sense where you can discard something very safely.
Yeah.
So I'll not say that it ends because most of the time the data would always be there in some
Yeah.
shape or form. So if you are okay with deleting everything, all the footprint from internet and from your servers and from every location, that is where it ends, but which is really tough.
Yeah. So it's always an evolving process. And as you said it never ends. It just goes on and on. Yeah, thanks. So given the increasing integration of AI into various sectors, like AI governance is becoming more and more critical than ever, as you said, especially in the era of Gen AI. And Gen AI models are capable of producing highly sophisticated content, right? And because it's widely accessible, now, the potential for misuse has also increased. So, to effectively manage these challenges, organizations are now trying their best to take proactive measures. But where to start to get the AI governance framework ready to address risks, as you mentioned, like bias,
Mhm.
misinformation, and lack of transparency? Where to begin?
See, it depends upon what's your maturity stage. But
Mhm.
I always believe that to begin, you need to educate people. And educate whom? Educate the top leadership. Very simply, because anybody who have joined the company or is in middle management, look up to their seniors as inspiration and always take their advice very, very seriously. So if your leaders are not educated and they do not acknowledge the importance of AI governance, it cannot be.
That's such a good point.
Second, you need to also think that you need to create something called RAI champions or AI governance champions inside your company. As one person, you will not be able to go and speak to everybody and say, hey, did you check for fairness? Did you check for explainability?
Mhm.
And probably they will not understand. But if your colleague come and say that, hey, Smriti, did you check for explainability? He will explain you better. So can we have RAI stewards or champions, multiple champion stewards in every department so that they can advocate the reason and the rationale behind having an AI governance system? And
Yeah.
then you see that people would proactively use it. Otherwise, you create an AI governance thing, everything, the
Yeah.
adoption will be very, very low.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think what you're saying is that you need to train the whole workforce. It's not
Yes.
just one person who needs to be trained. That's a very valid point, Shrey. So now AI technologies are becoming more and more powerful and widespread, right? From healthcare to finance to retail and manufacturing. And its ability to automate tasks and enhance decision making and unlock new insights is just transforming business models and reshaping entire sectors. So, for you, how do governance frameworks ensure ethical and responsible AI across industries?
Right. So there are two ways to do it. Number one, a government can actually create an AI governance or framework which is for the entire country, or industry bodies can create it for their industry.
Mm,
However, what I feel that it has to be a very proactive behavior where companies do it themselves so
mm,
that they are able to customize the entire AI governance and framework as per their work, as per
mm.
their market and as per their audience. Now, why call it audience? The biggest consumer of AI today are kids, right? And in no AI framework, they are being taken into account. So, for example, you must have heard that there has been a lot of sexual assault on kids on metaverse.
Yeah,
There are kids who have committed suicide after falling in
yeah.
love with large language models. So you need to understand who is your audience, and that is where you need to be very, very proactive. And
Mm,
what will AI governance do? AI governance would think so something like red teaming I talked
mm.
about. It will see toxicity. It will see
Yeah,
harmful words. Now, a word can be okay in, say, Spain, but may not be okay in Germany. It
yeah.
can be culturally and politically insensitive. So you need to create your own customized way of measuring something. What would be common? The common would be the principles that you need to test for hallucination, you need to test for toxicity. But what will go inside it depends upon your audience and depend upon your company.
Yeah.
And that is where AI governance holistically would talk about, okay, do I have the right checks and balances for, say, explainability, for fairness, and for me, fairness can be gender equity. For you, can be disability also.
Yeah.
That people with disability are able to get something or not. This can be a company which can talk about color. There can be companies which talks about zip code and ethnicity and so on and so forth. But the very principle of having a non-discrimination AI would be constant everywhere. So
Yeah.
the broader principle should be defined by, say industry at large or something like OECD or UNICEF or UN or World Economic Forum. But what do you put inside it and how do you check it should be a very, very proactive measure.
Yeah, yeah. So it's hard to keep innovating with AI while using it responsibly, because companies need to balance creativity with ethical concerns, as you said, like fairness and privacy. And rules and regulations sometimes can also slow down the progress, and companies might worry about the risks of misuse. So, resources spent on monitoring and controlling AI can also take away from new ideas. So, the challenge is always to find a way to innovate while making sure AI is used safely and fairly. So, how can businesses implement AI governance frameworks without stifling innovation? How do you think is that possible?
Very interesting. And I'll give you an anecdote for
Mm.
this. So if people are developing new cars and they are, coming up with new design, they have a better seat belt and better protection for not hitting the car and better braking system. So
Yeah,
having a better braking system and good quality seat belt does not stop or does not create a bottleneck for coming out with a very interesting and a very new and a very, fashionable car. Similarly, having right kind of guardrails and right kind of security measure should not ever be seen as a bottleneck. That should be seen as that it will enhance the usage of AI model and adoption of AI model.
that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always believe that a car comes with a seat belt. You don't buy a seat belt separately and a car
Separately.
separately. So, we should not talk about responsible AI. Any AI should be responsible.
Yeah, yeah. So that should be a part of whatever you are building. Yeah, right. So obtaining genuine and informed consent for training data collection is especially challenging with LLMs, large language models, which rely on massive amounts of data. And in many cases, users are unaware of how their data is being used or the extent of its collection. And most of the deep learning models are inherently complex and create kind of a, black box scenario where it's difficult to understand how these models process inputs and outputs. But there's always like a trade-off between complexity and explainability. So what role does transparency and explainability play in building trust in these advanced AI systems?
So transparency in simple term is removing the black box and putting a glass on top of it, where you can see what's happening, but
Yeah.
you may not understand what's happening.
Hmm.
Something like, Ferrari engine, where you have this transparent engine cover where you can see what's inside, but you do not know what's happening. An explainable AI is talking about each part, what is the role and what's happening. So, lot of time, this LLM model or anybody can talk about, okay, I collected data from this places, and I'm using it for this particular regions and geographies. That transparency. What about explainability? Why I'm using it?
Hmm.
What is the necessity of using it? Who will consume it? What will happen of your data after training? Will it get discarded? How will I renew and retrain the data? Right? Once I retrain the data, what happens to the old data? Right?
Yeah.
What are the parameter which changes the data? And that's very, very important. However, even today, I do not know what all data is being used by an LLM model to be trained. But in simple word, if I've given a metadata that, okay, I've used all the Google data, especially for all Google account, which was 2020 to 2025, then I can come to know, oh, my data was used.
Yeah.
And then I can tell them that, hey, you use it, but I want a write-off eraser where I can fill up a form and say, see, I fall into this particular category, that between this and this, you used a Google data or my images. I want it to be erased from your system. So those kind of power, there's those kind of ideas need to be implemented. Those kind of flexibility needs to be given, and those kind of something called a window need to be defined that I have used. So you can say that I've used the entire internet. Great, no worries.
Yeah.
But break it down. Tell me, Wikipedia, this from this to this, blogs, these all blogs written between this and this. So if you tell me the timelines and the from places from where you have taken, I will have a right to say no, sorry, I don't want you to.
Yeah. Yeah. So that users understand and know, what kind of data is being used to have that transparency with the AI solutions. So that takes us to almost the last question of this podcast, Shrey. How do you see AI governance evolving over the next decade, particularly with the rise of transformative AI and generative AI?
Right. So when it comes to AI governance evolving over next few years, I think that will become one of the most important area of AI. And
Hmm.
that is very evident from the way, if you see LinkedIn, the way people are talking on LinkedIn, or the way people are offering jobs for people who are into AI governance or people who want to opt for AI governance. Secondly, it is also visible from the kind of certifications which are coming up just to certify yourself or train yourself in AI governance. So this will become very, very important. There'll be few country which will make it mandatory, few country which will not.
Hmm.
But I believe that almost all companies would do it because they want to avoid three kinds of risk. One is regulatory risk, of course. One is revenue risk. And the third one, which is the most dangerous, is reputational risk. Even if government does not do anything, consumer would become so aware that they will start writing everything what they feel like on, say, Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or X for that matter. And people, the company would face lot of retaliations and lot of problems in future. And that is where I believe AI governance will become one of the most important department, or I'll not say most important, one of the
Key
major,
ones.
yeah, something which they will look after and they will have it in their system. A new department or an old department which will be rephased as a AI governance team or AI governance committee, and that will become very, very important. You'll see courses coming out. Means I teach at a couple of university, and I actually teach AI governance and responsible AI as a 2 credit paper. A lot of university across the world has come, Cambridge or say Oxford are coming out with such courses, and which shows that this is going to become a very important area of implementation and AI going forward.
Yeah. So this area is growing very fast. Maybe towards the end, Shrey, maybe you can share a small word to people who are really interested in becoming AI governance specialists. Where should they start and how to go about it?
Right. So when you talk about the AI governance specialist, if anyone want to get into this field, they need to understand, they need to know couple of things. Number one, they should be well versed, may not be an expert, may not be a legal expert, well versed with all AI policies which are coming out across the world, and just not in their country or region, but across the world. Number
Global.
one. Number two, they should also be well versed with what is AI. Right. They should know a data science life cycle. They
Hmm.
should know what is training, what is black box, what is white box, what is deployment. So they should be aware and should have a knowledge about it, even if they do not know how to do it. Number two. Number three, they should know what is fairness, how to control, what are the controlling mechanism, how to detect, how to mitigate, at least in theory, if not, again, implementation. And number four, they should also have an ability to talk about AI governance to in the company they are staying, or their company they are working, or in any conference they meet people. They should be able to talk with a lot of conviction, and that is very, very important. So getting into AI governance is not a 2 hour certification you do, but it's an evolving thing which you need to read a lot, because there is no clear cut format that you need to do A, B, C, D, and you are certified in AI governance. It's not even a career switch. So
Hmm.
it's an upskill which you need to do, and you are basically taking a tangent to your career. So any data scientist, product owner, legal expert, risk manager, risk expert, subject matter expert, anybody can go into AI governance as long as they understand few things and they add that skill set to themselves.
Yeah, some really great pointers, Shrey. Thank you so much. And that takes us to the end of the podcast. And you have shared really great insights on AI governance framework. I'm sure people had many questions around what this framework is, and they have got the answers now. Thank you so much. We might come back with another episode very soon. So thanks again, Shrey. It was absolutely great talking to you. Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you so much, Smriti. Have a nice
Thank you.